As such, it is important that this institution, such as the ASUC, continue to bring new and fascinating speakers to this wonderful campus. Therefore, it is only fitting that we get to be here today in the presence of the very man behind films such as The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive. It is our mission to educate the student body by providing them with amazing opportunities and numerous opportunities to question the world around them and to engage in new and innovative ways of thinking about the world. With this mission in mind, we are proud to bring David Lynch here today and talk about, and we're very proud to have him here today to talk about consciousness, creativity, and the brain. David is also joined on our stage by Dr. John Hagelin, a Harvard-trained physicist and world-renowned quantum physicist. Again, I'd like to state how great it is to have David Lynch and John here to talk about consciousness, creativity, and the brain, and how they can help us better understand how these techniques and practices can open up new ways of thinking that we have never even considered.
David Lynch has a passion for what he calls the doing, for his filmmaking, for his painting, for his photography, for his sculpture, for his music. He also has a passion, and you'll hear it tonight, for ideas. He loves big ideas that he captures deep within the finest levels of his awareness. And he also has a passion for that diving within. That's something that human beings have been doing for eons. Diving within and awakening that vast reservoir of creativity and intelligence which lies within each one of us. And that process of diving within, for the last 32 years, David says, has fueled his incredible creativity and intelligence and innovation and honesty and integrity that we all know and love about David Lynch. Tonight, we're very fortunate to have David talk about his filmmaking, his ideas, and his process of diving within. Joining David, as we just heard, will be Dr. John Hagelin, prominent quantum physicist, who has led for the last 25 years a scientific investigation into the foundations of human consciousness. Before we welcome John and David, I'd like to read to you a few words. We trust you among American filmmakers, for you don't manipulate. Instead, you imagine and you discover. We are proud that an individual can have pursued this hard, this twisting highway in this spiritually desiccated and hostile environment of Hollywood. And we are here to learn how you kept your bearings, kept your vision, and kept sharp your probing imagination in that smog of money and illusion. What does it mean to direct? Does it mean to administer? To engineer? You are not an engineer of emotion. As a filmmaker, you are rather a searcher of self and society. Well, here we are, David, right now at this minute. Direct our attention beyond what we know. We're listening intently. Welcome. Would you please welcome David Lynch and John Hagelin.
Good evening. Oh, Bobby Roth here, in the excitement, forgot to tell you that I don't have a planned speech. And there's 2 microphones for you all if you have questions on film or meditation or consciousness. You can ask questions. Or we can just enjoy the silence. It's kind of beautiful.
Greg, and I'm wondering, do you think that the consciousness can exist outside the body?
Here, there, and everywhere. It's consciousness is such an abstraction, and we all have it. We don't think that much about it, but it's the I amness, being, our ability to understand, our awareness, our wakefulness, our inner happiness. And there's a great, giant ocean of pure consciousness within every human being, in that it allows any human being to dive within and experiencing subtler levels of mind and intellect, and to transcend and experience that ocean of pure consciousness. Now, what happens when you experience that? It's so interesting. When you experience it, you enliven it, you unfold it, and it starts to grow. Consciousness grows. So beautiful. And the end result of that growth of consciousness is enlightenment, which is the full potential of the human being. Such a beautiful thing. What is your name again?
My name's Gregory.
Gregory, such a beautiful thing it is.
Thank you very much.
Things this field of pure consciousness is a field of knowingness, and it's like an intuition. So when you start experiencing it and it grows, intuition grows. And you know, Agent Dale Cooper had quite a good intuition going. And this is one of the things that I've found. I've been meditating for 32 years, and this thing for the filmmaker, this thing of knowing, and it's like an ocean of solutions. You dive in there, and these solutions come. You can see a thing, you can think and feel a thing, and see solutions to make it feel correct. Money in the bank for the filmmaker and for any human being. And then I remember this phrase, true happiness is not out there, true happiness lies within. And this phrase had a ring of truth to it, to me. But they didn't tell you in the phrase where the within was, nor how to get there. So it seemed like a very kind of mean phrase. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, maybe meditation is this way to go within. And so I started getting fired up. And they say at a certain point, we don't know when it hits us, but we become seekers. We start asking questions. We start getting curious. Who knows why this happens? But I started reading about things, asking questions, heard. The word enlightenment, I thought, is it possible for human beings to gain enlightenment? And what is that?
Okay.
And is it possible to really get happiness going from within? Because we are always looking out for happiness. And we live in a world of change. Everything is always changing. And if you see this car that you love, and you want this car, it's going to make you happy, you save up, or if you have the money, you get that car. And you brush your teeth looking at your car. It's so beautiful. It's so much happiness. And you drive it and keep it clean, and you're going along. Then the time passes. And a year later, it's kind of dirty with some scratches and dents. 2 years later, you're driving down the road, and you spot a car that you want. And this car starts crying because you don't want it anymore. True happiness grows from within. When you dive within and really dive all the way and experience that ocean of consciousness, which Dr. John Hagelin's science calls the unified field, oneness, unity, oneness and unity. It's so beautiful. And as he says, at that fundamental level, we are all one. We're one world family. On the surface, we're all different, which is always going to be, but underneath, we're all one. It's so beautiful.
A little bit about coincidence, perhaps what role it played in your life, or if you pay attention to it, and maybe if you could even speak on if you see any differences or boundaries between coincidence and intuition.
That's a very good question. Coincidence, I call happy accidents. And sometimes if something is going wrong, you might say that's not a very good thing, but at the end of something going wrong, it may have been all going wrong to show you a very good thing, which goes to staying alert as you go forward making a project, say for a film. And I like earth things. I like things growing, and I like also the things, decaying. Why do I like that? I don't know. But it's a beautiful, beautiful texture to me. Unbelievable. Unbelievable textures. A factory in a field is almost more beautiful to me than just the field. Man and nature kind of working together. Even though it's very bad for the environment, it's a beautiful texture. I just like those things. And this action and reaction, how does that go? It's like a dance, and it's like you do something based on and it's the intuition going. It's this consciousness sort of flowing. You make an action, you see it, you react, you feel it, and it indicates the next action. And you react, you think, feel it, and it indicates the next thing. And it grows, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's the same in music. It's this note is going, and that one isn't working. It just goes to that one. It just builds, and it goes like that.
Thank you.
And intuition does grow. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Now I've heard that there's businesses, they had an article in the paper, businesses run on fear. Businesses run on fear. And I thought if I ran my set on fear, I wouldn't get even 1% of what I get. No one would go the extra mile. But it's like a macho thing to run your business on fear. And people are in fear all day long. And when you fear a place, pretty soon you start to hate the place. And you hate to go to work. And that hate turns to anger. And then you're angry at your work. This is the reverse of that. You start unfolding all these positive things, the negative things start to recede. And if you have a set with this kind of atmosphere going, people go the extra mile. They start flying with ideas. They start helping out more. They start being with you and it's not against you. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question?
Are there any particular directors, contemporary directors that you admire?
I don't know so much about contemporary. I guess Paul Thomas Anderson, I'd say. I like, Fellini and Bergman and Kubrick, those guys a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The day is just very enjoyable, and I kind of have a setup where I have a wood shop and a painting studio and a sound studio. I can go, as ideas go, I can go here and there, and that took a long time to get, about 20 years to build that, and so I always wanted a setup. So now I can kind of go here and there as whatever's sparking it, dictates. Field of pure consciousness is at the base, the source of thought, the source of mind, the source of matter. And it's the source of a fish. It's the source of a tree, the source of a star. It's a beautiful, beautiful, full field. Always we are pointed out, but now we're pointed in. And why do we like going within? Why is it easy and effortless? Because it's natural. The mind loves to go to fields of greater happiness. And with each subtler level of mind, with each subtler level of intellect, there's more and more happiness until you reach the source, maximum bliss, maximum. And you splash into that, and the splash is bliss. Beautiful, beautiful. You just keep diving, you pop out with thoughts, dive back in, pop out, dive back in, then you come out. More and more and more of that is with you. It's like going to the treasury and filling up your pockets with money, with gold. And then you come out and you start spending it. Ideas, you start catching ideas. You start having a great time. Just out on their own. But sometimes when you're working on a piece of music, music for me unlocks a lot of things. Sometimes you're working on a certain music, there's certain combos of sounds, and a image comes out of that, an idea comes out of it. It just pops out. And we're listening to other music, I get a lot of ideas for scenes, and maybe just a fragment of something, but it leads to other ideas that hook together with that, and a story could form. And then, but some of the same sensibility of painting, for instance, works in film also. You know, framing a thing, and where the eye goes. Some of the same things work across the board. And film is a lot like music because it's a flowing of things in time like music is. And that's a beautiful thing to think about, how things flow in time.
And also, you talked a little bit about the rehearsal process to focus ideas. Do you feel that there's one part of filmmaking that is most important for you?
No, all elements are important so that the whole can work. And if you don't pay attention to each element, then the whole, you know, has less chance to work. And even less chance to get the thing as the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Sometimes that could happen. And that would be a beautiful thing.
Quick follow-up to that. I can appreciate your reluctance to discuss your current progress on your film right now, but could you maybe share with us an interesting dream that you've had lately?
I haven't been dreaming lately. I don't know what it is. Last night, I did dream, though. I dreamt that we would all work together in this world for real peace, which is not just the absence of war, but the absence of negativity, the seeds of war. And Maharishi has said that negativity is just like darkness. It's just like darkness. And you say, wait a minute, and you look at darkness, and then you see darkness isn't really anything. It's just the absence of something, the absence of light. Turn on the light, darkness goes right away. No problem. You don't have to fight the darkness. And it's good, all the good we can do for our fellow man, all the good we can do for society, all that is so beautiful. But at the same time, let's work together to turn on that light of unity, the real, most fundamental level of the world, of existence. Turn that thing up with a peace greeting group. Try that. See what happens. And see if negativity goes away like darkness goes away in the light.
I just have a quick question. Whether you see transcendental meditation and diving within as antithetical to social activism and social movements, because this campus in the 1960s came close to a university for world peace, and that, I'm not sure if that was predicated so much on meditation as opposed to social activism and jumping up and down and holding signs and speeches.
To me, you do what you can, like I just said. Do what you can for society. Let your voice ring out. But for me, I've got to concentrate on trying to, and I'd ask you to help me, you know, do something that I really believe is getting underneath the problem. Not solving the problem at the level of the problem, even how big your heart is. Get underneath the problem, enliven that field of unity underneath all problems. Help do that as well.
Thank you.
Diving within all of David's beautiful descriptions are the descriptions that people have had throughout the ages of turning within. David asked John Hagelin, and we'll meet Fred Travis, brain researcher, to talk about what science tells us about the process of diving within. And then when those two gentlemen are finished, then David will come back and continue taking your questions. John Hagelin is a world-renowned quantum physicist, educator, author, and public policy expert. He has conducted pioneering research at CERN, which is the European Center for Particle Physics, and SLAC, which is the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, and is responsible for the development of a highly successful grand unified field theory based on the superstring. His scientific contributions in the fields of electroweak unification, grand unification, supersymmetry, and cosmology include some of the most cited references in the physical sciences. In recognition of these and other achievements, Dr. Hagelin was named winner of the prestigious Kilby Award, which recognizes scientists who have made major contributions to society through their applied research in the fields of science and technology. The award recognized Dr. Hagelin as a scientist in the tradition of Einstein, Jeans, Bohr, and Eddington. Dr. Hagelin received his PhD from Harvard University. He is currently director of the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy and professor of physics at Maharishi University of Management. And he is now working in Washington, D.C. to establish a much-needed, long overdue University of World Peace. Please welcome Dr. Hagelin.
Shared. David has talked with us about the experience of a field of unity within, profound inner harmony, inner peace, and inner unity. This experience of inner unity is really the core experience that has been described since the beginning of history by all the major traditions of knowledge and spiritual traditions of the world. Is this field of unity at the basis of life's diversity, fact or fiction? It's very interesting to me today to see that modern science, through its reliable but slow means of gaining knowledge, has, over the past half a century, maybe a little longer, peeled away layer after layer of the onion of existence, exploring deeper levels of natural law, deeper levels of nature, from macroscopic to microscopic, to the molecular, atomic, nuclear, subnuclear world of quarks and leptons, electroweak unified world, grand unified world, super unified world, 10 million times smaller than the atomic nucleus. At this fountainhead, this core level of nature's functioning, we see the emergence, the discovery of fundamental unity at the basis of the diverse laws of nature governing the universe. At that level, all four forces, gravity, the strong force, the radioactive force, the electromagnetic force, are all one. And all the so-called particles, the quarks and leptons on which they act, are also all one. At that level, there's just a single unified ocean of existence. And all the particles and forces that fill the universe are just little ripples on the surface of this ocean of unity, ocean of existence. I will show that the Vedic tradition, as I think you all realize, is founded upon the complete knowledge and practical utilization of the ultimate reality, which in the modern scientific language we call the unified field. So since we're talking about Vedic science and technology, let me phrase the question and answer it from the standpoint of a physicist. What is Veda? Well, in essence, as the chart shows, Veda is the foundational level of natural law, the deepest laws of nature governing the universe, the laws that govern the emergence of the universe, the evolution of the universe, the deepest laws of nature. Now, from modern science, looking back over the history of the last 50 years, has been an exploration of deeper levels of reality, deeper and deeper levels of reality, beginning with Newtonian physics or classical physics of the macroscopic, observable world, our environment, But then, in the last century, delving into the world of the atom, which is governed by quantum mechanics, and then delving into the realm of the nucleus, which is governed by quantum field theory. And now the main thrust of physics today is delving into the unified field. As this chart shows, or superstring field in the language of physics, the most fundamental laws of nature that give rise to all the particles and forces that govern the universe, all of the atoms and molecules and macromolecules and physiologies and planets and galaxies. The whole universe, as you can see, emerges stage by stage in a very precisely understood mechanics from universal, pure intelligence, the unified field giving rise to the world of matter. And the whole understanding by science of the dynamics of that unity, the mechanics of creation, the mechanics of the emergence of this ever-changing relative universe from the never-changing absolute. What comes out of the unified field? The universe comes out of the unified field. And this shows a little bit what the unified field is. Unified field is an ocean of pure existence, an ocean of infinite silence, an unbounded sea of intelligence and pure creativity. But on the surface of the ocean is the ever-changing world of change and of dynamism. So silence at its core, dynamic on the surface of the ocean of pure being. That is the structure of the unified field. If you wish, in the Vedic language, this infinite silence, absolute, unchanging, beyond space and beyond time, may be Shiva, Purusha. The ever-changing relative on the surface of life is the Shakti of Shiva, the dynamism that brings forth the universe, or Prakriti. Now, in physics, these bubbling emergence from the unified field, the universe that emerges, has a particular geometric shape. These bubbles look like ginger ale, continuously bubbles of ginger. They're not ginger ale, actually. These are called superstrings, and they are actually infinitesimal elastic loops. That's just what the mathematics tells us. By the way, we have a word in the Vedic literature talking about this emerging Prakriti. Sutratma, or string self, is a name that is used for this aspect of Prakriti. But we have these fundamental strings, and these strings vibrate. Rubber bands vibrate. And they vibrate in certain ways, with certain frequencies. And the mathematicians can calculate all the different vibrational frequencies, the tones of a rubber band. It's relatively simple, except these rubber bands live in 10 dimensions, so there's a lot of elbow room, a lot of wiggle room, and it gets a little more complicated. But the miracle of unified field theory, the magic of string theory, is this. When you calculate the different frequencies of the unified field, calculate the different frequencies, which means the different energies of vibration. And according to Einstein, that means different masses of the superstrings. The higher vibrations have more mass. The lazy vibrations are nearly massless. When you do the calculation, amazingly, what you find is the universe we know. And the universe we know is made of 5 fundamentals. These are called the 5 spin types. Spin 2, graviton. Spin 3 halves, gravitino. Spin 1, forces like electromagnetism. Spin 1/2, particles like electrons and the Higgs boson. And these 5 fundamental ingredients of the physical universe that come out of the unified field actually have a more holistic description in terms of what are called three superfields. The unification of graviton and gravitino give you gravity superfield, and so forth, in just this way. But isn't that exactly the nature of the universe that arises from the Ved? In the Vedic literature, we have the emergence, and this is described in Charak Samhita and in Ayurveda. You have the emergence of the physical body in terms of these three very subtle qualities called prakritis, doshas. And these doshas are three: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. And Vata, Pitta, Kapha are the combination of Akash and Vayu. These are the Pancha Mahabhutas. Tejas and Apas, or fire and water. And Apas and Prithvi, or water and earth. These unifications bring 3 from 5, or 5 from 3. That is exactly the structure we find in physics. And it's not only that we have this mathematical correspondence in the language of physics and the language of consciousness, the language of the Veda. Not only do we have this mathematical correspondence and precise groupings, but it's also what they are. I mean, what is Akasha? Akasha is space. Space as subtle substance. As Einstein would say, space as relativistic fluid. Einstein said that gravity is just the curvature of space which flows like a fluid. This is the ether. This is Akasha. So this correspondence of what comes out of the Veda and what comes out of the unified field of physics is exactly the same. So comparing the lemon tree with the orange tree and finding that they are the same tree means they come from the same seed, and that Veda and unified field are one. Now, there's one more step in this. There are actually 5 main avenues of scientific proof that are popular among physicists about the identity of Atma and Veda with the unified field. I'm showing you one. That's the quantitative correspondence, the structural correspondence between Veda and unified field. I'm going to spend a few more minutes on that and go deeper into it. Let us not just look at the tree of life that emerges from the Veda and that emerges from the unified field. Let's look inside the unified field itself. That means beyond space and time, because this area of physics is beyond the Planck scale, beyond space, beyond time. It's primary to space and time. And if you see here, you can see some numbers: 8, 24, 64, 128, 192. These numbers describe the structure of the unified field, internal structure and vibrations. The unified field is humming within itself. It's reverberating within itself. What we're going to look at is the frequencies of vibration of really the Atma, the Veda, the unified field, and show that they're the same. So I'll do it very, very, very quickly. In the physics, the unified field has a mathematical parallel to a string, and that's why it's called string theory. Now, if you look at a string, a guitar string has 2 completely independent ways of vibrating. A string in space can vibrate up and down, as this diagram shows, or it can vibrate back and forth, to the left and to the right, as this diagram shows. So one string admits 2 different independent vibrational frequencies. Now, because a guitar string lives in 3 dimensions and time, so you have 1 dimension of the string itself and 2 dimensions perpendicular to the string. Superstring theory lives in 9 space dimensions, or 10 space-time dimensions. So you have many more perpendicular directions, 8 in fact, in which the string can vibrate. So the unified field in physics really resembles an instrument like this. It really only has one string, but because of the number of dimensions, the string has 8 independent frequencies, 8 independent tones, 8 resonant frequencies. So when the unified field is described as the superstring, it actually, when this superstring is far removed from life, it's far removed from Chandichok, it's far removed from our changing world. It exists at a very transcendental level. But in the process of creating creation, the string theory undergoes a metamorphosis, several of them, an internal transformation. What happens in physics is this superstring that lives in 10 dimensions transforms into what's called the bosonic string, named after the great Indian physicist Bose, that lives in 26 dimensions. And because it lives in 26 dimensions, the bosonic string actually has 24 independent vibrational states, independent sounds, independent frequencies. And that's not the end. That bosonic string transforms itself again into something called the free fermionic string that has 64 vibrational degrees of freedom. And finally, through a somewhat more complicated mechanism, the last stage of transformation is the fermionic string gives rise to, through a process called space-time supercompactification, which I show here. You can do this on your own at home. And if you do the math properly, you will discover that the final stage of transformation of the string in preparation to create the universe has a 192-fold vibrational structure. 192 tones or sounds is the unified field reverberating within itself. Why do I go through this? I go through this because if you compare that structure to the Ved, the Rig Ved, which was described today as the blueprint of the universe by Dr. Nader, the template on which the universe is structured, you see a very similar structure. You see that the Rig Ved, which Maharshi said earlier today, is captured in one sound ah, representing the totality, the wholeness. But it's a very abstract wholeness. Veda flows to elaborate on itself as Agni Mile Purohitam. That's the first pada of the Rig Ved, first 8 syllables of the Rig Ved, which then further elaborates itself as Yajnasya Devam Ritvijam Hotaram Ratnadhatamam. That's the first richa of the Rig Ved, and then continues to flow to the 64 and 192 syllables of the entire first sukta. It is a sequential unfoldment of unity represented by A, which stands for the Atma, to diversity through a precise sequence. And that was incredibly beautifully developed by Maharshi Mahesh Yogi in what he calls the Apaurusheya Bhashya of the Veda, meaning uncreated commentary by human mind, because the Veda comments on itself. And the universe itself is a commentary on the Veda, emerging from the Veda and commenting on the Veda. So what we find here is, as we just said, the Veda unfolds from 8 to 24 to 64 to 192. These are different packages of wholeness, each representing the totality of knowledge. And just from that, you can see that the structure of the superstring and its sequential unfoldment to give rise to the diversified universe is the same as the sequential unfoldment of the Rig Ved from A to the entire 192 syllables of the first sukta, from within which the gaps between those syllables give rise to the 192 suktas of the Rig Veda, and so forth. So the first mandala of the Rig Veda. So it's the same structure. And on that basis, we can conclude, and this is an argument that physical scientists will accept, that the Veda is the ultimate reality. That Veda is the ultimate level of natural law that is immortal, giving rise to the whole field of mortality. The absolute, giving rise to the ever-changing relative. So this is perhaps interesting to some, not to everybody, I'm sure, but interesting to people who want to understand what Veda is in a scientific context. The rest of my comments will be on, okay, what good is it? What I'd like to point out is that the Vedic technologies of yoga and yajna and Ayurveda and Sthapatya Veda, architecture, and so forth, these Vedic technologies based on the Veda are really unified field-based technologies. Technologies based on the practical application of the unified field. Let's take a quick look at one. Let's look at yoga, and if you wish, the physics of yoga. Yoga is 8 limbs of yoga, Ashtanga yoga, and I'll be focusing my few comments on what's called dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the meditative science of yoga. Now, from a standpoint of physics, what is consciousness and what is yoga? Well, as we've already seen, the universe is structured in layers of creation, from superficial to profound, from diversified to unified. From this perspective, you might be surprised to learn that human consciousness, that the mind has a parallel structure, an exactly parallel structure. So in the Vedic literature of yoga, mind can be divided into superficial to profound. At the surface level of mind, we have vaikari, which is concrete thought, articulated thought. Subtler than that is madhyama, abstract conceptual thought. This is the world of the mathematician, maybe the world of the physicist. Deeper than madhyama is pashanti, which is the finest feeling level of the mind. And beyond that is the atma, para, transcendental, beyond concept, beyond the mind, beyond the thinking mind. Now, amazingly, mathematicians have been busy. And mathematicians have been corroborating, have been verifying this exact same structure. In fact, the mathematicians have divided it up a little bit in greater detail. So the mathematicians have identified different levels of mind, from the very narrow concrete to the most expansive, most holistic, most powerful, most comprehensive level of mind. So if we start with the crude, we have the counting numbers 1, 2, 3. You master those numbers, you're perfectly prepared to go shopping. This is what, you go to the store, you get 3 apples. Subtler than that is the whole numbers, almost the same, but a little more abstract. It includes 0. Then we have the integers, negative numbers, which are a little more abstract, perhaps, but more powerful. Every level is becoming much more powerful. And then you have fractions, which most of us are familiar with, and that is the end of articulated mathematics. Then comes these levels called real numbers, complex numbers, and function spaces. You can't even write these numbers down. These are called transcendental numbers. They cannot be written down, they can't be spoken, but conceptually they exist. This is the level of madhyama, abstract conceptual thinking. Deeper than that, we have the level of the most expansive concepts, slipping beyond human comprehension. Those are limits of function spaces and products of function spaces. And then finally, what the mathematicians call the universe of sets. This is infinity beyond comprehension. This is consciousness beyond comprehension. This is transcendental consciousness. And these levels of mind actually correspond to the physical world. You need these different levels of mathematical sophistication, mathematical expansion, mathematical power, mathematical abstraction to handle, to comprehend physics at the quantum mechanical level, at the quantum field theoretic level, and at the unified level, truly to comprehend the unified field, the Atma, that's beyond conceptual grasp. That is direct experience in samadhi. So now what is yoga? Getting to the point. So the mind exists on different levels. Yoga and yogic meditation specifically, transcendental meditation, for example, is a powerful set of techniques to take our outwardly directed attention powerfully within, to explore deeper and deeper and deeper levels of mind. Then slipping beyond mind, we have the experience of the transcendent reality, the Atma. This is the state of what is called samadhi, transcending thought, the direct experience of the universal self. Now this Vedic understanding is now a modern scientific understanding as well. The meditative state, samadhi, is now established as a fourth major state of consciousness. It's not waking, not dreaming, not sleeping, it's samadhi. It has its own neurophysiology, profound orderliness of brain functioning, global extension of coherent functioning of the brain, and its own state of body. It brings a level of rest much deeper than sleep. Deep rest, for example, has powerful effects at dissolving stress and preventing stress-related illness. For example, studies, and we'll talk about the practicality of Vedic medicine later in the conference, but every major category of disease markedly reduced simply by the regular experience of the transcendent. Heart disease, radical reduction in heart disease, heart attack, stroke, and death through transcending. And the US government and the American Heart Association recently recognized in a formal national policy recommending doctors prescribe transcendental meditation. Because among all the different mental exercises and relaxation techniques that exist, they found in the biggest study ever done of its kind that it's really only transcending. And transcendental meditation is a very easy, effortless way of transcending that actually lowers blood pressure, actually prevents heart disease, prevents stroke, prevents death. So this is real. Healthcare costs in major studies go way down, even among senior citizens whose health expenses tend to be very high when they learn to transcend. So in this context, let me mention that Vedic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, is really Atma-based, unified field-based medicine. This is quite remarkable. Modern medicine is essentially chemical medicine, pharmacological medicine. Modern medicine, of course, has its procedures to deal with the gross physiology, like orthopedics and surgery, but really the thrust of modern medicine today is at the chemical level of the human body, the level of pharmacology. There's a hint of the nuclear level today in what's called nuclear medicine, but it's very, very slight. In contrast, Vedic medicine is a far deeper, far more fundamental approach to health, a far more fundamental understanding of the body. Yes, Ayurvedic medicine has its gross physiological treatments and purification, and its herbal medicine, which is the most developed in the world. But really the focus of Ayurveda is down here at the level of the unified field. Remember, Ayurveda is about balancing the doshas balancing the physiology at the deepest level, the level that a physicist would say the level of the three superfields, the level of the three doshas. And part of Ayurveda really is yoga, transcending, dealing with the mind and body from its unified source in the unified field. So it's pretty clear that Ayurvedic medicine, in principle, is millions of times more powerful than allopathic medicine, because these nuclear and subnuclear levels are millions of times more powerful than chemical medicine. And fortunately, not just more powerful, because that could be dangerous, naturally free of side effects, because we're dealing with the body at a holistic level, the level of unity, and the level of the emergence of three fundamental from the field of unity, the three doshas. Very hard to go wrong.
The Vedas, the fruit of the highest human knowledge and wisdom, the kernel of which has at last reached us in the Upanishads, is the greatest gift of this century. It's pretty well known that Schopenhauer greatly admired both Buddhism and Hinduism. It's said he read the Upanishads every night before bed, and at the end of his life he even taught himself Sanskrit. Ultimately, the pessimistic outlook must stem from an epistemic skepticism regarding the material world. What this means is that there must be a conviction that the material world is not the world of supreme importance, that something exists beyond mere matter, that the material world is an illusion. In any case, it must be a satisfaction to me to see my teaching in such close religion of men upon this earth hold as their own, for it numbers far more adherents than any other. This agreement, however, must be the more satisfactory to me, because in my philosophizing I have certainly not been under its influence. For up until 1818, when my work appeared, there were very few, exceedingly incomplete and scanty accounts of Buddhism to be found in Europe. Only since then has fuller information about this religion gradually reached us.